Hello? All right, guys, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining the podcast. Welcome to all the new people tonight. Greatly appreciated to see you guys again. We have an interesting day today. It seems that things are going sweetly for Ukraine versus Russia. Looks like Belarus might get into the fight. And, well, let's just say things aren't looking very good for Putin. Beyond that, uh, I drink and I know things. So, gotta love the shirt. Great shirt tonight. Yeah. What do you guys think? First time you've ever seen me without a beard. It's shock and awe right here. Shock and awe. So, hmm. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. Howdy, Zach. Right back at you. Luna, hello. Hey, friend. Um, Beyond that, let's see where else we going with this, man. Where else we going with this? Let me fix this camera real quick. By the way, if you guys haven't noticed, the mic moved, and so did I a little bit. So just got to get this sorted out just for one small second. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna bring this over right here just a little bit and extend out my camera just a little bit. There we go. That way, you guys have more cardboard. See? Yeah, not getting cut off as easily. And how's it looking, everybody? Everybody sound good? How's the sound, by the way? My gain is all the way down, so you guys shouldn't hear me breathing as much. I also put on like some noise and filter gains and did a whole bunch of stuff. We are making this shit professional, guys. Making it professional. Let's see. I'm not sure General Chat knows we live yet. Let's let everybody know. Let's let everyone know over in the Discord that we are live and podcasting. Click the buttons of doom. All right. Send. Well, let me make sure that's the right. You know what? We're just going to send it now. We'll see. There we go. Well, there we go. Good luck tonight, Luna girl. What is Luna doing? Ah. I'm your buddy leveled up on a gift. By the way, guys, if you join our Discord, we have this great bot. People compete, level up, gives you levels for participation. As you ascend through the levels, you get certain ranks within our Discord. I gotta currently work on modifying that a little bit so it works automatically. But yeah, make sure you guys join in our Discord. Hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you dislike it. You know, it really helps the algorithm, especially when we're starting up, for you guys to hit those buttons. So please do. It helps me. Help me help you provide more content. You know. Not enough NPR, but good. I mean, if you really want, we can do NPR. I'm your host, Alex, and tonight we'll be talking about Russia's invasion into Ukraine. Can they withstand it? And what does the future look like for Vladimir Zelensky? This hour brought to you by NPR, where we bring you government-sponsored news. Welcome. Was that better? You guys. Once we get super chats, I'll let you guys choose voices for me to read stuff in, and then I'll probably be one of them. Yeah. So Tarkin, you weren't around. There was a joke about NPR. Also, you can hear my tongue click every time I talk like on NPR. I ate a liver with a side of fava beans. Okay, let's get serious. Getting sidetracked here, man. Getting sidetracked. Welcome, Fat. Welcome, Tarkin. Good to see you. Ozman, good to see you again, too. Welcome, guys. Welcome to everybody. All right, so if you guys aren't aware, inside of our Discord, we put the items for the stream content that we're going to talk about tonight into the podcast content channel. So make sure you go give it a look there if you want to know what we're going to be talking about. Feel free to chime in. I do try to interact with chat as we go along. Also, Zach is gladly offered to provide everyone dinner here, so hit him up. All right, so starting us off tonight, we're gonna go over here and we're gonna talk about the big news of the night on the international stage is Belarus is moving additional troops to the border of Ukraine. The Belarusian state basically said that they are responding to a threat from the armed forces of Ukraine, and that the country is basically sending its special operations forces, so its soft forces, to the border with Ukraine. Right? I don't know. I don't know what's going on there much outside of what's been said, but basically their story is that they are claiming Ukraine is basically stationed 20,000 troops closer near to their southern border, and requires them to respond, and they produce basically a statement about it. And let's get into the translation of that statement. This coming from Chris O. All right. In order to ensure the security of the Republic of Belarus in the southern direction, units of Special Operations Forces are deployed in 3 tactical areas. That's basically its entire piece. So we'll see how this moves forward. It may just be another delay tactic by Belarus to not get involved in the Russian military campaign without pissing off Moscow. So we shall see. Oh, Jay the Giant Peach. I wish I could. I am currently so sick. I will touch base. Oh, get better, Jay. Get better. She's one of our regulars, guys. So yeah. Hi to welcome, Jeff. Welcome. Good to see you. I saw your subscription last night. I just didn't know where you're coming from. But welcome to the stream. Greatly appreciate your presence. So this creates a unique situation here, right? So there are reports in U.S. intelligence that Vladimir Putin has said that he's in this for the long haul, right? And that he plans on prolonging this war until basically the West loses interest, and then he just plans on taking Ukraine. And in doing so, he presents a unique situation for the West, I think, in my personal opinions, right? So he wants a land. He's not really going to be satisfied with the Donetsk area, the Luhansk Donetsk area. He wants a land bridge between the Russian occupied areas of Moldova through the south to create a land bridge, and that is his stated goal, from what I understand. So, at the end of the day, it's really, this seems to be his goal, seems to be the wanted outcome he has, and he is bound and determined to do it by any means. Apparently, even if he bankrupts the Russian state. So, I'm not sure how they currently do this because some people were talking earlier in my Discord about, do you think that Russia currently has the capability to clean this up eventually and move on to other countries inside of Europe and take Ukraine? And as it stands right now, the Russian military does not have the ability to do that. They just don't have it in them. It's just not possible. They haven't been able to reconstitute their forces. They have not been able to show any form of unit cohesion, let alone in, interagency cohesion between their air, land, and sea. The inability to coordinate complex combat operations is going to be key if they're going to take on anyone, especially Poland. And I think right now what people are looking at is it's possible this could be the Belarusians' movement to basically stage their troops to occupy the Polish Ukrainian border. If they do that, I don't think that's going to go very well for them, right? So American news sources seem to be losing interest. Yeah, because it's not in their backyard, right? So we've had this discussion many times with people like you guys know them as Pure Yogurt and Tobias, right? Pure Yogurt and Tobias, they're closer to. Um, hold on one second. I'm tagging them with the no. So they're closer to Ukraine than their country's capital. Okay, and yeah, so it's it's interesting. It's interesting. And Constantino. Oh my lord! You know what, guys? We're not going to talk about Mia Khalifa. That's not happening. We're not doing it. Basically, she talked about how bad the porn industry was. Well, we're going to take this aside so we can address this so everybody will shut up about it. Basically, she talked about how bad the porn industry was, talked about how she got ripped off by Bang Bros Incorporated and all that, which actually they put up a whole website to refute it, and she lost her court cases. And basically, it was another attempted Me Too that failed. Um, and now she's quote unquote realized by taking her own sexual agency that there can be positivity in porn and has opened an OnlyFans after swearing off porn and saying it was evil and that women shouldn't do it, that it's equivalent to them selling their bodies to men and reinforcing the patriarchy. So we're not touching that topic with a 10-foot pole right now, just like I want to touch Mia Khalifa's vagina. Um, and we're going to leave it alone. I mean, it's not like I have the invite anyways, right? So, all right. So, I'm going to, we're going to, we're just going to leave this alone. So, moving back to the subject at hand, right? Um, God, you just lost me. I had to get into that aside. Holy Jesus. Oh man. So, all right, back to what we were talking about. So yeah, there are people who are closer to Ukraine in Europe than they are to their own capitals of their countries. Okay, and yeah, I don't think that I think that even though the U.S. is going to lose interest, I think it's going to stay a topic in the European media, and I also think that it provides good fodder, and I don't think it'll ever die out of the media because what else are you going to cover when you do have a slow news day and no celebrity gossip or trials or someone in Hollywood isn't hitting someone with their car? I swear we progressed so far as a species. All right, so I don't think that that's going to happen. But Belarus, if they try to take the Polish border or occupy the Polish border with Ukraine, I think there was a conversation that was had privately from an undisclosed source that Poland would never allow the Ukrainian border with them to be occupied. So, oh no, absolutely. ISW is great. I work closely with many of the intelligence resources there and enjoy fellowship there. So it's great. It's interesting. So let's talk about that. So the thing is, so you have Moldova, and then Poland, and that forms basically the western border of Ukraine. Right? There's some other countries that touch. I get it, but we're just gonna leave that alone. Um, that border is very important because it's already partially blocked by Russia, which means that any access to the Western countries by land has to happen through that Polish border. NATO cannot let a foreign power occupy that border because then you have a very, oh, welcome, guys, welcome. So we have my Austrian friends we were just talking about. So what we were talking about is how the U.S. media seems to be losing interest in this war, right? But it happens to be in most of Europe's backyard. And I was saying that you guys said that your capital is close. You're closer to Ukraine than to your capital, right? Ah, got you. All right. Well, welcome, guys. You are live. So I get you. Understood. I just wanted to make sure. So, how you guys feeling right now? How's things been? Heard any explosions across the port across the way? Hopefully not yet. So Russia hasn't moved on to the rest of Europe yet. I don't think I don't see that coming. He can't even take Ukraine. Nah. One of my friends, he's in Romania, and he was like, "Dude, we could hear explosions the other day as they were happening." And, but he's really close to the Romanian border to Moldova. But no, I was just being smartass. Oh man, that's crazy. Hell yeah. How was y'all's trip? Or have you taken it yet? I don't remember what the date was. Heck yeah. Y'all just have so many trips, you know. I mean, y'all just balling it out. Oh, they can't hear you. I'm sorry. One second. All right, so guys, they couldn't hear anything you said because I didn't have my desktop audio on. So, anyways,
Oh,
so
okay.
so basically, they were talking about that their furthest border is farther away than Ukraine is, and so I was asking them. They were saying they haven't heard any explosions, but they could. You guys said you could see the Eurofighters training.
No,
Yeah,
our Eurofighters were training, and also we I've seen tanks being transported by train and stuff, and this is all just is a reminder of what it's. I think that's what Pius was talking about.
no, that's not. Uh, no, it's not really a Ukraine thing. It happens every now and then. We see paratroopers training or Eurofighters.
You said in the sky over what? I can't say the word.
Wiener Neustadt,
Wiener Neustadt.
the biggest city we're close to.
Well, so
It's
no,
the
I was
city
just
where I go to school.
you guys got to understand like for people like these guys who are in Austria to Ukraine is what, an hour, like 2 3 hours,
Yeah,
4 hours,
3 hours maybe.
three
three
to
hours
four
maybe,
hours.
3 to 4 hours. So though we may forget about it because we're across the ocean, guys, you have people like these guys right here, like literally 3 hours is the difference between them being at home and them being in a war zone. And for Europe, we're Europe's just a lot smaller. I know it's very difficult for us from the States or from Canada because we're used to these super huge land masses that our countries make up. Um, you got to understand, like Germany's the size of like a Texas and a quarter, right? Like the Europe European peninsula is sort of skewed in how it looks on a globe. It's not that big. So
We have some refugees. I see
Yeah, we have a
more
lot
and
of
more of them.
refugees. Yeah, I
Uh,
noticed them too.
coming in through the what by way of Poland?
No, no, but when I walk through the city, I notice more and more cars with like where it is written
Ukrainian.
on them that they come from Ukraine with traffic plates, I think is.
So guys, EU traffic plates have your country of origin and sometimes your city
You
on them.
don't have that in
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we
America.
have
Oh, come on.
No, we
the
don't. We don't have big giant plates in
wait,
America.
we have the country, the state, and the uh, district,
Cool.
Yeah, and this
and also the
is what I'm.
European Union.
Yeah,
The EU reef. Yep.
yeah, and that this is what I notice when I go through the city, and also you hear a lot more Ukraine talking and also maybe Russian talking
Yeah, we
when
have some
in the city.
Ukrainian kids at the sport thing training Verein.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you were saying. You were a little low
No,
there.
no, a German word he doesn't know the translation for, but
Let me get the translator.
Let me get the translator. So yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and that's the crazy thing, man. Like the amount of effects that this is having on Europe. The news media is not going to drop it, guys. Like, this is affecting everyday Europeans' lives, especially people who are close, like Austrians, the Polish, the Germans. So,
yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
have
have some
also.
Ukrainian kids at the sports club I'm
yeah.
now.
Yeah, and also at my school there we have two new students who come from Ukraine, but I think generally it is fair to say that we treat them fairly positive in Austria, which isn't a thing you can take granted for, but I feel very positive about that.
So for you guys who don't know, Austria is right here. It's in the south of Germany, right? It's on the other side of Hungary and Romania.
Let me check out
So
your stream.
yeah. Oh, thank you. So that's where Austria is for the person who messaged me. So you got to think like the furthest. So over here by Liechtenstein and this area over here near Switzerland, if you're close to Vienna, right, or you're in Vienna, you are closer to Ukraine than you are to the far side of your country. So yeah, that is wild, right? Northern is native Ukrainian, but he's been in here in the U.S. I think for a minute, for quite a long time. So, but yeah, Austria, Switzerland. So, people who are here in Austria and the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. I mean, they're right next door to this stuff. Well, I appreciate you guys, man. Definitely. Thank you for coming in at the ping. We had some great discussions the other day, but I'm gonna leave it be.
Yeah, it's 1:20 a.m. for us at the moment, so we were just checking on you, and I think we're going
Absolutely.
to sleep normally.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for stopping through, my Australian brothers from another mother and father. Um, I'll catch you guys later.
All right, see you. I'm gonna go to bed. Ciao,
Thank you.
Tobias.
Uh,
Well, Tobias, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. Well,
yes.
uh, so, guys, by the way, that's part of the podcast. If you want to come jump in voice, just understand that you're going to be on the stream, right? And that you just need to make sure you're willing to talk about your opinions in depth, you know. So
Is this about the abortion
uh,
thing?
yeah, we're this is for later. So that's when we do world politics, right? Then we do US and like North American stuff. And then we just have free and open conversation about the concepts that are brought in through chat. And as we grow, if we get monetized, we can get super chats. And the plan is to be able to allow people to super chat subjects they want to talk about. and then I select from those super chats, and we go and talk about those subjects, right? But we don't have super chat capabilities yet because I don't have 1,000 subs. But I'm working on it. But yeah. So the whole thing is that Belarus right now is moving to the border it has with Ukraine, and it's thought that they're going to try to occupy the Polish border with Ukraine. I don't think I don't think Europe's going to allow that. I don't think Poland is going to allow that to happen. Actually, Poland has said that's a red line for them, right? Because if you think about it, Moldova, the Moldovan border is almost entirely controlled by Russian forces. So the only access to the west that Ukraine really has is through Poland. I mean, if not, you hit that big block of mountains. So
Is Poland NATO?
Poland is NATO, yes. So yeah, I mean, you guys kind of marched through them during World War II.
Yeah, yeah. That was us. Like
And Russia. You guys basically used them as a battleground.
that was my great grandfather was in Russia.
Yeah.
Nice times, good times.
Hey, ain't it is what it is. So be it. Okay, you're here. So yeah, so we were talking about that, and basically what it comes down to is they're saying that Ukraine's armed forces basically set up a group of about 20,000 soldiers outside of their southern border, so they have to react. But there's no real proof to this, because Ukraine has really no reason to amass soldiers in that area, right? So it's just blustering, and maybe this is just them trying to dodge out and not have to be a part of the war either, while still keeping Russia pacified. Oh, we're moving our troops. We're getting ready for you. We're going to take care of it. So far, Belarus has dodged the bullet of getting, dragged into it. How technologically advanced is the Belarusian military? Says I Love Tarkin. Do they use the same tech as Russia? They do use the same tech as Russia. So they use Soviet era military equipment, but most of their military equipment is older cast-offs from Russia and extras and just reserve. They don't have S-400 or S-500 anti-air systems, for example. Most of their stuff is late 80s, early 90s. So, not the most advanced military. The thing is that even if Russia were to take Ukraine, and God forbid, right, they'd have to march through some highly unfriendly territory, because you go from mostly flatlands and it starts becoming more mountainous, especially as you traverse towards the end of Romania, the beginning of Austria. Like, the whole reason Austria kind of exists is it kind of exists in this valley of mountains that made it really impermeable, so it was able to sort of create its own culture and resist. So Germany used to be a whole bunch of broken up Germanic tribes, and eventually they were unified, etc. But the German barbaric tribes were, roaming, and they would pillage and raid each other and etc. But the further you get south in Germany, the more mountainous it becomes, and so that area of Austria, right, and the Austrian countryside and along into is it Sweden? Yeah, it's Switzerland or Sweden. I can't remember. Oh my god, I get them confused all the time.
In the north.
Yeah, you said what?
Sweden is far in the north.
Yes, right. So it's Switzerland. So that area right there sort of had a natural mountainous barrier that sort of kept them insulated from that, and so that's kind of the history of. There's way more. Austria is actually a really cool country if you ever get a chance to go there. So is Switzerland. Go skiing; it's fun. Let's see. Not much that's viable on a current battleground, which is one big reason Russia is struggling in many reasons. Yeah, I just don't see how there's no way Russia currently does not have enough air power to take on NATO. And
Yeah,
those mountainous regions, go ahead, sorry.
I don't even consider it. I never considered a war between Russia and NATO. That's not a thing, is it?
I mean, if they, so think about this: one misstep by either side, right, could activate Article 5.
Yeah,
So,
but like, how would anyone be that brain dead?
oh no, Russia would be stupid to do it. They're outnumbered 3-1. But not to mention
Just
that,
just 3-1? That seems
yeah,
low.
they have 1.2 million to 3.5 million troops. So we have 3.5, they have 1.2. We outnumber them 3-1. Now, when it comes to technological capabilities, we're far superior.
We see they're struggling to take even Ukraine.
Hmm.
It's like, I mean,
And the Polish, Austrian, and German
how
armies
would they
are, yeah.
even how would
Go
they
ahead.
even uh, stand any considerable chance against fucking NATO?
They won't.
Yeah,
Without
why I'm not
massive
even.
mobilizations.
That's why
People
I'm
were,
not even considering it.
yeah, well, people were talking about now if Russia decides to mobilize its country and take the long term and build forces over the next 6 months and then launch into a large campaign, it is possible that they could pose a threat. But right now, as it stands, and I'm addressing a chat, basically, the the chances of them marching into NATO or or past Poland is none. But even if they do, guys, and that's what I'm saying, like even in the exceptional chance that they do, okay, when they hit those mountains, the Alps, right? When they hit that land barrier, that means they have one place to march through, Poland, and right behind them is Germany, okay? And two of the most, okay, so infantry wise, Poland is amazing, okay? But the second largest military in Europe is Germany, okay? Now they're a defensive military, but they will kick your ass, all right? And
Like,
their terrain is very unique. So, go ahead, sorry.
I've heard stuff about the German military. It's barely in shape.
Yeah, well, they doubled their spending back. So, oh, welcome back, Pure.
Hello.
So,
I just wanted to say that I have your stream open in the
hmm
background and I'm looking through my stuff right now. And just for your information, the thing Russian will struggle to fight isn't the German military. I think it's the challenging terrain in Europe.
Yeah,
and
he
Um,
that
was
that's what I
just
covered
talking about
first.
that.
Yeah, I covered that
okay.
first, and I said, and then once you get through that, you still have the German military backed by the U.S. Right? The largest U.S. military bases are in the U.K. and Germany.
I think Germany has a lot of problems with their military right now
hmm
because they have a lot of organizational things because they have a new government and stuff.
Well,
But
they hadn't funded it, but they doubled their funding. They literally
yeah,
doubled their
yeah,
our
no,
military's funding. Yeah, yeah.
I'm fairly
Cool.
confident with German politics, but
Oh, yep. Sorry.
but you can also not forget the France's military. France is also, I think, really a fairly powerful military, and
hmm
France has atomic bombs. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, and then you have is it yeah, Sweden, their air force is actually considerable. They actually have their own jets and other things like that because they have Saab, right? And so Saab produces their military jets. And so they have Sweden has a formidable air force. A very formidable air force. So because their jets aren't meant to compete with the US. They don't care about that. They design their jets specifically to compete with Russia. So their entire air force is built around the idea of stomping the shit out of Russia.
Historically, that's a bigger threat, to be honest.
hmm
Yeah, historically and currently.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Finland used to be part of Sweden, and they sort of broke apart because of a conflict that happened where Russia invaded, and then afterwards Finland got broken off of Sweden, and then there's lots of historical context there, but just understand that Sweden and Finland have a reason to be worried about Russia historically from a context on the European continent. Russia has presented the biggest threat to Eastern Europe for the longest time.
Yeah, and also for the Scandinavian countries, World War II has been catastrophic, and not only by because of the Germans, because a lot of other countries have suffered from the Germans enough, but Russia really focused on Finland, and it was really uh, tragic how
Yeah.
they just surrounded them, bombed the shit after them, and wanted to let them freeze in the winter.
Yeah, wasn't that
And
called like
this
the White
was,
Winter or something like that?
yes,
Yeah.
it, so this is just 80 years in the past, and Russia seems to be moving in through a mindset where they try to uh, argue that all this isn't so bad and the Soviet Union wasn't that bad of an idea, and so it is really, really fair for Sweden and for Finland to be threatened by that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then also going back, what happened to the Poles in Poland by Russia too, like
Yeah,
that
of course.
massive massacre occurs besides what happened. Like that, dude, being stuck, but historically being stuck between Russia and Germany has never been a good idea. No offense. Like, love you guys. Like, you're not responsible for the past, but
Yeah, of
like,
course
just
not.
think
Yeah, what
historically,
can I
like,
say?
being
Yeah,
stuck between those two countries has just led to a shitstorm. I would just be like, oh,
yeah.
really? All right. So, but yeah, man. So that's basically what's going on, guys. So if that happens, Poland would step in. Now, Article 5, to get to the topic at hand of a question that was asked earlier that left this whole subject open, why I wanted to cover it. Article 5 only happens if you get attacked. If you decide to partake in another, inside the, so if Poland decides, hey, you're not going to be on our borders, you can get the fuck away, right? And decide to kick the forces off of the Ukrainian border, they're engaging into that conflict willingly. Article 5, if they get attacked back, Article 5 doesn't apply to that. Now, if their sovereignty is then threatened or invaded, right? Then that's something different. But those conflicts that Poland willingly chooses to get into, as long as they're not within their border, NATO ain't going to have anything to say about it.
Yeah, and I don't think NATO would let Poland do this, because if Poland is at war with Russia, that means the whole of NATO is at war with Russia. I don't think that's an option.
Yeah. I mean, and let's not the Russian public sees NATO as basically just an American proxy, and I can't argue that one too much, right? Like currently in its current state, it's kind of true. It is kind of true. I
You have
can't.
to be careful with that. I know what you mean, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to always keep in mind that we have a lot of sovereign countries ourselves in Europe, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it is really important for us. But to be fair, 90% of the mil of the power of the military NATO has comes from the US.
Well, I wouldn't even say that. I think it's more of like they see it because of the equipment that NATO uses, right? Like most of the equipment that NATO allies use, with some exceptions, like France has their own submarines and Sweden has its own airplanes that they've decided to use because our shit's super expensive, right? To maintain and to buy. But most of the military equipment is U.S. made, right? A majority of it, and so even if it's being used and the forces behind it are not American, people still see that as American military power. And I think it's a bad visual, but it's you don't want
Yeah.
everybody having a million different systems either. But I get it. That was more of what I was getting at. I apologize. I wasn't meaning to be insulting.
No, 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 not at all. I get what you say.
Yeah.
I just wanted, it's just, I think to be able to understand what our position in Europe is, I think it's important to understand a little bit that uh, a lot of European countries get really annoyed from at the US from time to time, because they feel like the US doesn't recognize their sovereignty, and US always feels like the rest of the world needs their help. Um, but I know what you're trying to say, and you're also right with that. But I think,
You do
especially
remember
with,
I lived in Germany for 3 years, right?
yeah,
Almost four. So
yeah,
no,
sorry,
I get
sorry,
it. I definitely remember that. Like I remember that, and like we didn't help ourselves, but Americans think their shit doesn't stink, and I get it. And no, we talked about this before, but and I get what you're saying. That the thing for me is less about I don't I want Europe to be more self sufficient, right? And I think that this situation, as bad as it is, and as much as I feel for Ukraine and I wish it wouldn't have happened, it happening has been a positive thing because it's reminded Europe that it cannot be so reliant on others for their defense. And I think that that's a positive thing because an
not only
independent and
defense.
secure, yeah, an independent and secure Europe is important to the world, and you shouldn't rely on somebody that's on a different continent to provide that. And not saying that that's entirely what happened, but there were quite a few countries that basically just weren't investing in their military at all, and I think that that was bad for Europe as a whole. And I know I'm an American talking, but I think I can have an opinion
Yeah,
on the
yeah, of
yeah.
course you can.
So, but that's why I'm glad you guys are here. People are a fan of this type of format, so I appreciate you guys, man. So, how's everything other than that? Like, how's you guys said that you guys had fun on your trip on the first because it's basically the equivalent of y'all's Labor Day,
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
but
that good stuff.
When is your Labor Day?
Hmm.
When is your Labor Day? I thought it was May 1st everywhere.
I
Is
did
May?
some research. Didn't know that you had the exact same Labor Day as we have in Austria.
No, I
But
mean I
What?
saw it all over Reddit. Labor Day is
It's
in
International
Austria.
Workers' Day.
Yeah.
yeah,
May Day. It's made. Yeah. Wait. What? I didn't know that either.
yeah,
Is that bad?
but it is.
I didn't put it together. Yo, I feel so dumb right now. Yo, it's all good. It's all good. I don't know. I don't expect this, guys. I don't expect this to affect the rest of Europe anytime soon. The effect I think that it's going to have
No, I
on
don't.
Europe is that Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe. That's not a overstatement. They produced a majority of the grain going to the Western Bloc of Europe. And
Yeah,
as we looked at earlier, wheat and grain is in everything from plastics to makeup to
Yeah.
yeah,
We
food.
have a
Good.
very big struggle in Austria and basically all over Europe with pricing going through the roof for basically everything and mainly food and gas, as you know, but also food.
Yeah. And as gas goes up, everything else that needs to be transported does too, right? Because the cost of shipping it goes up, and
Yeah.
then I think that's a struggle everyone's facing. We're facing it here in US. I mean, we expected some inflation from some of the economic bailouts we had to issue from COVID, but I think that on top of that inflation, we also have the markets are unsure, so of course that's creating panic. And then on top of that, you have this crisis in Ukraine, and it affects everyone. And India, that was supposed to be stepping up to the plate, they have a record heat wave. So actually, a lot of their wheat crop is actually being wiped out right now. So India and
climate
Ukraine
change.
produce a ton, huh?
Climate change.
That's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to throw it
Yo.
in. Yeah.
So I am a proponent of people having discussions and not shutting that down because I think that most reasonable people don't think that climate change doesn't exist. I think that the basis of the argument is more of where does it come from and is it cyclical and natural or is it man-made, right? And
I
I
mean,
know overwhelming majority of over 83% of people are of people in the sciences are in consensus, but that also leaves the 17% that are not. And I think that you don't get very far by just disregarding 17% of anybody.
You, if
I
you
think
if you don't want to engage in the argument, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Just
No, I
stop.
understand. I'm just saying I think that's a subject for another time, and I think that's how I'll frame it when I do it. That's actually a good idea for another podcast coming up. Um, I just don't understand. The thing about the US right now is that there's been some memos that have been leaked from large companies and stuff, and some of them are just raising prices to see how much pain while they can, right? So right now prices are going up anyways, and so people are blaming that for the price increases. And while that's happening, corporations are purposely raising their prices to see how much pain someone's willing to take until they stop buying, right? How high can I push the price until it negatively affects me? Like they're even willing, and that pushes people out of the market. But when they increase their profits, the people who fall out of the market don't make that much of a difference to the overall picture because of the increase. And like yesterday, gas was 3.89. Today at the same gas station, it was 4.16, right? And the average was 4.21. There's no way that the gas in the ground already there, right? That's already been delivered, already been paid for in full, right? Because you paid for gas up front. It did not go up. Um, what is that? 27 cents overnight, an eighth, like,
Well,
or a twelfth, yeah,
I heard about that. The same is happening over here.
yeah. Like, and it wasn't because of a new delivery. Like, it was literally the same gas. Because I know when they get their gas deliveries, because I know the person who works there, not the man, but the who works the night shift there. And it's like, he's like, I don't know. It's what they told us to post. So, anyways,
A lot of the refineries take the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, as an opportunity to artificially make the prices go up so they can have more profit. So it's not about the old, not only about the gases, about the gas and the oil we already have, but
Yeah, that's
agreed.
what
the
we are talking about.
refineries. Yeah, yeah, but
Well, that was
it's
one of the memos that
just
came out from Saudi Arabia. Exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, sorry, I was stupid.
Don't that don't say that. You are not thinking or so stupid is such a such a negative thing, man. You're not stupid. You are far from stupid. I
Yeah,
appreciate your opinion, or else I wouldn't
I had
Also,
be like,
it.
come.
I appreciate your sarcasm and you not understanding it.
It's all right. We'll figure it out.
It seemed very dry. I apologize. I didn't get the sarcasm. All right. Luna said, "Yeah, gas jumped higher than a white kid overnight. That isn't very high,
White
supposedly.
kid overnight, I don't get it.
In
Jumped
America,
overnight like a white kid. Is that what
yeah,
you're trying to say? Yeah.
yeah. So jumped overnight like a white. So there's the joke: white people can't jump, right?
Is it okay?
it's it's an American thing. I'm sorry. It's they literally made a movie called White Men Can't Jump. It's literally a movie in America.
Yeah.
I
So
personally think that the cultural differences between America and Austria and Europe in general is very interesting because in a positive way interesting because we don't have these things in Austria. We have different things, but not in this. I think we treat them not as fair and not in a healthy way like you do. And so these jokes kind of open your world to us Austrians who don't have these cultural diversity in Europe. And
yeah,
that's
we
why
were
I
talking
think
about
it's
that.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that the first time we did I think it was the first podcast. I still have the recording of it. It was the first podcast I did, but yeah, we were talking about that. Where we were talking about there's it's very monocultured, and because you have long foundations in comparison to the U.S. Like we've existed for like a fraction of how long Europe has, and
And
and then we
and
were
it's really
talking. Go ahead,
tragic.
sorry.
Yeah, no, no. I think I was trying to say what you were trying to say next, but it's really tragic. But we kind of killed off all the cultural diversity we had in the Second World War, and that's that's I think that's firstly it's really sad and really tragic and all, and secondly I think we miss out on a lot of stuff we just don't have because we denied and killed it off, and that's really sad. And it's not also only that we that because of the murdering we did. Of course, a lot of most of the culturally diverse people moved to the US and into safer countries, and so we lost it in a way, and I think it's a pity.
No, I understand that, but also with that, you get some of the benefits of monoculturalism, right? Because for example, here in America, right, the health problems of African Americans versus white people are quite different, right? And so our medical system has to be focused on a larger, more wide spectrum of issues, right? Whereas when you get into more monocultural countries, that's not so much the case. And why national healthcare is not as expensive for them as it may be for countries that are more diversified. And I'm not saying I'm not agreeing with World War II, guys. I'm not saying what happened and what the
Of
Nazis
course
did
not.
was that's not what anyone here is saying. I'm just talking about he was talking about some of the negatives, and I was just trying to be positive, okay? Because I try to bring some positivity to negative conversations. That way we can keep having them and not be depressed.
I doubt that uh, the reason that is in monoculture and not in just different health systems.
Um, well, dietary is a huge thing here, right? So, um, we can have that discussion some other time. But there's other reasons, and
Dietary.
yeah. But other things besides that, like the number one killer of African Americans was heart disease. I think it's number two now, but that comes from the differences in uh, diet that happened here in America because of the cultural foods that extend from the history of slavery and other things like that we're not going to get into. Um, but yeah, it's crazy. I still need some. Why can't I think of it? It's basically German macaroni and cheese. I bought one of those things. I gotta go make the noodles and stuff. I can't remember the name of it right now.
I'm really sorry if
Spaten?
Spätzle.
Spätzle. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you go to Germany or Austria, it's great. It's amazing. Like it's the best type of macaroni and cheese you'll ever have. Go ahead. Sorry.
I really just wanted to
Spätzle.
apologize because I feel like we like uh, always make your stream kind of sad, but
No, they're loving this, dude. My viewership is higher than it's ever been, and the interaction. Like, no, they love you guys. It's great.
no,
We don't
I
get
just
this
wanted to
perspective.
yeah.
Like we don't meet a lot. There's not a lot of European people here. Like it's the reason why I no longer am able to speak German, right? Like there's nobody to speak it to.
No,
The European, like I spoke French. I no longer speak French because you don't run into French and German anything. Like it's mostly we have basically two sides and then Latin and Asians and then Europeans. There's not a lot of European um, uh, immigration here. It's very interesting. Yeah, Luna says yes, we love them. Stay, and then over here in Discord, people are like, these guys are yeah. So people love you guys.
I just wanted to explain that Tobias helps me out with the sarcasm, but I think in uh, in Austria, especially in Austria, is really a sarcastic country, and I think it's great how Austria and Germany also does it, but in Austria, I think we have a great relationship to our history, but that also means we get confronted with really sad topics on an everyday basis, and I think that's why Austria kind of gets very sarcastic, and this is kind of like the way Austrian people talk. I think Austria is a very, very sarcastic country in comparison to, I don't know, like the US.
So
Yeah, I
so
love it. I love
for
it when Tito's. I'm talking to someone from England. I was in England once, and the first guy I talked to, hey, where are you from? I'm from Austria. Yes, Hitler was born there, right?
I, the
Kind of all the
he kind
sarcasm in Austria. It
you know
is
what
our way to cope with our
I remember I was
sadness, and
joking with you
I just
guys and I
wanted
was like,
to.
yeah, you guys are responsible for World War II. If y'all would have just accepted that man to fucking college. Like
Yeah, Yeah.
He'd probably become a artist instead of a politician. Damn it.
Ah, yes.
No idea what kind of running gags there is in Austrian comedy in relating
Yeah,
to that.
Gregor, artist, politician, ringing any bells?
Yeah, okay.
Artist, politician. Help me out. I'm missing the reference here. And by the way, the reason why I paused for a second is I was trying to figure out if you were being sarcastic, like in saying stupid, because you thought maybe I was treating you as if you were, or I was talking to you as if you were
No,
stupid.
no.
And that's I just like no, I don't think that's what they meant, and I moved on. So that was all. No, I love it. It's just very difficult because usually sarcasm is inferred through tone here in America, not through what's said. So it's just
Oh,
different.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
I think
absolutely.
we have a lot of dark humor, and I think
Dark
sarcasm is.
humor and also very much sarcasm. You can hear a guy talking and talking in a serious tone for like a few minutes,
Ours.
and he means exactly the opposite of what he's saying.
So what were you
I
guys
don't
talking
know
about, artist
anybody.
politician, before it gets off the rails? What? Help me with the reference. Were you guys were
And
not talking about
you
Hunter
were
Biden, were
bringing
you?
it up when
Sorry. No, you said does artist politician sound familiar? I was like, huh?
oh no, I mean Hitler was an artist before he became a politician, and because he was kicked out of his university, I think uh, he got into politics.
Yeah, that's was the joke I was making. I was like, I blame you guys for World War II because if you just
Yeah.
let that man into college.
Yeah. So I mean,
So yeah, I get it.
No, Tobias got one.
Go on, man.
why wouldn't you get the joke?
No, I wanted to ask if you have already heard the joke. Um, I don't know, in my social surroundings, this is like a running get that we show somebody a picture. And what do you think? Do you think that is a good art, and is it like a really good painted a good really good painting of a castle and with some trees and hills in the background? And I don't know, what's this question, and if the person says yeah, I think it's good art, you said great, you just like the picture of
That's a running
an
gag
art
on Reddit.
on from Hitler. No, I think I I have heard it first in school, not in
Nah, it's
Reddit.
all over Reddit.
Okay, uh,
Cool.
it's just my generation.
Also, being next door to Hungary, like that's another thing. Like they have Hungary is in a very unique position right now because it's pretty much got a 50-50 split between the right and the left, pretty much. And like the right controls the government for the most part right now because of their president versus their prime minister.
It's
But
really
they're,
autocratic.
yeah, they're, it's a little
It
interesting.
moves in a really difficult way, and it is difficult for the European Union to uh, rechtfertigen, to argue that Hungary should stay in the European Union because it is really autocratic things it does.
Well, weren't they talking about like punishing them in the EU or something? Is that a conversation that's happening over there, like
Kind of,
removing
kind of.
financial support
But
or something?
yeah, kind of. But a lot of the things Hungary does is really not compatible with European ideology. For instance, uh, uh, um, Hungary is really, really homophobic, and this isn't really accepted in the progressive European Union.
Like, what do you mean by that? Like, can you give me an example of what you mean by
I
active
think it's
homophobia?
generally fair to say that the European Union acts more progressive in comparison to like other big unions around the world, and we have like this image, and the European Union always wants to uh, be attractive for the young generation, but you can't really do that when you have Hungary and also Poland, to be fair, with you. But I think it's important that they stay in the EU to kind of keep them in line. But yeah.
See,
And in
but
hybrid,
isn't that why? Isn't that why Brexit sort of happened? I mean, they try to. The whole thing was is that the EU sort of forcing, removing their sovereign when it's supposed to be like a block for the. Well, I'm just gonna accept this. When it's supposed to be like a block for basically economic cooperation, right? And then laws started being passed down that basically override the laws of the
yeah,
native country. I think that that can make people feel as if they're being dictated to by outside foreign power, and I think that that can have really negative effects, especially given the history of some Western European countries. You've seen the backlash in Poland and Romania against that because outside influence has always been ended up being a removal of their rights and basically their statehood being in only in name only, right? And I'm not
the,
sure that empowers Europe. Go ahead.
the thing is why we have these laws, these things that can override the local laws, is because on some topics it is necessary to move and act like as one nation and as one united union in some way. And one thing where it isn't really reasonable to act like a lot of little countries like we are is the refugees crisis. And the United Kingdom was, and a big thing about Brexit was, as far as I am concerned, that that uh, the United Kingdom wasn't um, didn't agree with the refugees politics that the European Union did. And in Europe, it is regulated that everybody can move freely through Europe, and we have borders, but they are not controlled if you come from another European country, and was a big thing that the United Kingdom didn't agree with.
Understood. Um, I, I guess what I'm getting at is I think that if the EU is going to become more of like a federalist organization and not just an economic bloc, then that needs to be clarified with its member states, right?
Yeah, but it isn't this really a
Like,
movement that happens from one day to another. This is like a thing that
hasn't that been
generally,
always happening?
yeah.
Well, you said it's always been happening like that.
Yeah, I mean, we are voting for the EU government.
It's not
Understood.
like it's not like it's a general movement, but it's not uh, a thing that from one day to the another we decide that we become a European Federation instead of a European Union. But we have
Because
to with the European Union, the thing is, we have for a lot of countries and also for Austria, the European Union is the only way to express some kind of power
hmm
to like politics outside Austria through economics.
hmm
We do not engage military, what I think is a good thing, but we we can have some statements and enforce them through economics, and we can stop trading oil and gas with Russia, for instance, if you don't agree with them
I mean,
what to
there
do.
are
But
debates about
so
yeah, but
you feel that it gives you
EU army.
basically equivalence on a world stage? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry,
kind
I didn't
kind
hear
of.
you, man. I apologize. I need to
Yeah,
turn you up.
no, it is important to what I wanted to say is this: it is important
Well, I cut
to
Tobias
agree
off. I
on
was
some.
apologizing to him, but you
Oh,
go ahead.
okay, sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm really great at cutting people off,
No,
and
you're fine. I did it
yeah,
to Tobias. I didn't hear him. I'm turning him up right
okay.
now, actually.
I
Sorry,
mean,
Tobias.
there are discussions about getting an EU army, and now what I'm wondering is,
I don't know how good
first
of an
of
idea that.
all, it's
Mhm.
possible, and secondly, we are a neutral state, so we are not allowed to take part in military actions and uh, actions and
We can't have
Union.
Austrian soldiers fight in
And
another war.
yeah,
That's
no, we can't be in an pact, in a military
Yeah,
pact.
you
military.
guys have the same constitutional limitation that Germany has. You're
No,
required
no,
No,
to
no,
be a
no, not
defensive
not
state,
at all,
right?
not at all,
No?
no.
not at
Okay.
all.
Germany is NATO. We are not allowed to. And now what I wonder, if the EU gets an army, technically we must then leave the EU.
Yeah, that is a really big argument, and this is an important argument that is always brought up in the
Well,
conversation
the I
about
don't
the European army.
so here's my reason why I don't think the EU should have its own standing army, okay? So if you think about it, almost all EU members are members of NATO, okay, or are NATO aligned. Um, the problem is I think that if you create a standing EU army, you would weaken your other strategic. So you already have the EU Council, the European Council, and you already have NATO, right? And you have the UN. The UN is toothless when it comes to dealing with Russia because they're a permanent member. But um, at the end of the day, I think that if you create a European army, you would weaken the other because you'd have to take away forces or rededicate them to other purposes. You would weaken your already standing military treatise and sort of weaken Europe as a whole by dividing the efforts into further dividing the efforts military efforts put forward. And what you really want in militaries is cohesion and a cohesive vision and a cohesive action. And when you have so many leaders and not enough Indians, right, where you're basically answering to three different chains of command. You have the European chain of command, your local chain of
Yeah,
command,
of course.
and NATO chain of command, and possibly the European Council chain of command. That's a lot of chiefs in a military structures are supposed to be very singular, very top down, very structured for a reason, because you want people to be aligned to one goal, one mission. Because if people are trying to go three different directions and they're one unit, you got a problem. So
The
I'm
thing
not
is,
I don't think a European military is a great idea in the current
I
structure of Europe. But go ahead.
I don't see see that as a problem because when every EU member gets a standing military, like not what we have now in Austria, but a real military, and those forces were combined to an EU army, then we wouldn't even need any NATO anymore. But I still don't want an EU army because then we would have to get an army, and also then we would not be a neutral state anymore, and I don't
Can
want
Mm-hmm.
to
I
give that
can
up.
I explain to Cardboard for a second, Tobias, what's up with our neutrality? In after World War II, we were uh, come on,
Occupied
occupied by the alliance forces, were
with the
by
Allied.
by the Allied, by America, and the most important countries we were occupied is America because we had a lot of influence on our culture by this. And another thing we cannot forget is we were occupied by the Soviet Union.
We were occupied
And
by the Soviet Union, America,
Bri-
France, and
Britain,
Great Britain.
Britain, yeah.
And then we were occupied for what, 1, 2 years? Or no, four
No,
years.
no, no, 4 years.
4 years.
And
And
then
once we got rid of them, we had to sign a contract that we were
no, the thing is
free
that's not
democracy or
true.
something like that.
We
And
It was necessary for occupiers to leave our country to was
yeah, that's what
necessary
I'm
to
talking
sign some
about.
contracts. But our neutrality doesn't come from that. Technically, we were careful in signing this contract after the occupying powers left the country. So it is clearly stated that we did this as a sovereign action and not being influenced by this, especially not being influenced by the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union always wanted Austria to be neutral while they were occupying us. But Yeah, and this was a big political discussion, and now in almost every argue in the parliament, it is our neutrality and how we uh,
Interpret.
interpret it. It is
Mhm.
on topic.
Understood. The biggest thing for me is self-determination, right? So we had this conversation how the concept of self-determination is very big to in America especially, but how sometimes it could be somewhat foreign to others. Um, and I think this is where we get into cultural differences. I know that Romania, Hungary, Poland, um, Italy, uh, maybe France, um, and Portugal. Self determination is a really, and Britain, self determination is a very big deal. And the loss of self determination through having to answer to a EU federalist, and let's be honest, the EU was set up with many levels of bureaucracy and has grown far beyond its original charter. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, we can agree on that, but another topic is if it is a good thing or a bad thing. I think
Yeah.
that's the
So,
important thing
I,
to argue
yeah.
about.
So what I'm saying is that level of bureaucracy and getting all of the EU members together to vote on something and to act quickly and efficiently is that doesn't exist, right?
We
And
had a
sometimes, go ahead. Sorry.
no, we had a saying when Putin uh, started the war with Ukraine. We were we made making him compliments also in a very cynical way, because no instant has united the European Union like Putin did. It
Mm-hmm.
is it is a running gag that the European Union cannot agree on things, and especially on things should be really important to agree on.
Mm-hmm.
But Putin has accomplished that in some way or another. We can
Yeah,
try to see the positive in that.
he definitely created unification amongst European states that wasn't there before, and I'm not arguing that. But if we were talking about any other actor, so let's have a quick conversation there. So the biggest conflict in the European Union becomes the differences between European nations like Ireland, right, versus Western European nations like Poland, Hungary, Slovakia. And the whole thing is that in the European Union, no matter how small your European country is, you have a say, right? And you were talking about how that was important and how it made you feel like Austria could have a say, even though they're not the biggest player in Europe, they're equivalent to the other big players, right?
No, no, no,
Okay,
not at
sorry.
all, not at all, but the European Union is the only way how we can express any of our opinions on an international level. That what I was
Okay.
trying to say. In the European Union, how much you have to say is dependent on how big your population is,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the seats you have in the European Parliament per country is dependent on your population. We don't have the same saying like Germany does. Actually, Germany, it is really criticized that um, a lot of things Germany also kind of can decide by itself. The German government is really powerful in the European Union because they have such a big population. But we are not equivalent to that in any way, but it's the only way how we can express any way, uh,
Yeah, but you have a
how we
say,
can,
right? And that's what I was getting at. You have
yeah.
you have some form of self determination,
Yeah,
right?
and I think we only have that because of the European Union. We wouldn't be able to have any say on an international level, and wouldn't be able to argue against Russia if we hadn't the European Union.
Yeah. So what I was getting to is that if it would have been another adversary besides Russia that decided to kick up this dust, I'm not sure the reaction would be the same because there's one thing that so Western Europeans are much different in their views and societal and cultural uh, makeup and composition than Eastern Europeans, which are heavily influenced by the British and the Spanish. Okay,
And
which share a
Americans.
common. Huh, I'm sorry.
And Americans.
Yeah,
And
and so
American Americans.
absolutely. So that is usually the where the divide lies inside the European Union, at least from what I've seen quite often. And the European Union requires, I think, unanimous decision on some things and on others. It's kind of weird how it all works. I'm not going to dive into it,
It's
but I
really
think that
complicated.
yeah,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, there's one thing that all European nations, both Western and Eastern, the Eastern Bloc has always seen Russia as a bad actor that's tried to mess with them, and the Western Bloc has actually paid the consequences of being the buffer between the rest of Eastern Europe and Russia. Okay, so I think that in this one instance, Putin greatly miscalculated and absolutely unified Europe. But I think that if it would have been a different adversary, I don't think you would have the same outcome. And I think that the EU against a different adversary may have squabbled and argued much longer than necessary. So if there is to be a European army, it needs to be very clear who the chain of command is, who can act quickly and efficiently, because with the current layers of just bureaucratic red tape that exist in the EU, just by its nature, they wanted it to move slowly. The gears of government should move slowly in order to not chew up its people.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
that
kind of
this
the
is a
idea.
really important it's a really important saying. I
Yeah, we
think that it
that saying
also
doesn't exist in English, by the way. So give me 1 second to clarify
no,
what
no,
that
no,
means. To
no.
go ahead. Sorry.
It's not a saying. It was saying it was completely the wrong word, but it's an idea that is really important. That
Mm-hmm.
through a lot of through this big of paperwork that is to do and the, it is really argued for the long processes that uh, in because of how the European Union works and because of the many layers a decision has to go through in order to be final. This way protects the democracy and the being safe in Europe. I think that's an important idea to
Mm-hmm.
get your head around if
But
you want to
sometimes,
understand
mhm.
European um, ideas and what is happening in Europe. But I also think that because of that, it is not really fitting to have a European army because you cannot have an army if you work like that.
Yeah, it's very difficult when anyone can throw a wrench in the movement, and you have someone who's being invaded right now, but other people want to discuss about really is it for them to get into. So you would either need to have something really clear like Article 5 and someone who can just make that decision. But then that would take away sovereignty and control over armed forces that belong to a specific country if they're forced to deploy, right? And they could just refuse, and then it's pointless anyways, and you create infighting. I see it as sort of repetitive and redundant. I see your arguments, and I think there's arguments, but we're both on the same side of we either way we think that in its current form the EU doesn't should not form its own military, though that there would be pros. There are a lot of things that would need to be overcome and addressed before it would be a positive or even doable for some members of the EU, right? So there we
Especially
go.
for Austria
Hmm.
because of our neutrality, for instance.
Yeah, I think Germany would run into an issue too because of their constitutional requirement that they cannot have a military that is anything but defensive. They have a pacifist clause inside of their constitution. This is not for
Yeah,
you guys. This is
well,
for the people watching. So,
I
go ahead.
This
guess
is kind of
I
more
guess
like
if there was an EU army, it was just a defensive army. I mean, is it in the interest of EU to attack a country?
but do you really think, Tobias, that you can make a clear line between defensive military actions? Because I
Nah,
don't.
definitely not. But that way you can, uh, uh, what's it? Exploit the constitution by just saying it's defensive, like
Yep.
they did with NATO.
Yeah, but we can. It is hard to draw the line and make it specific what is regarded as being defensive offensive. You
Yeah, I
can
know.
see army.
But if they manage to get into NATO, they with
Should get
their
in. Yeah, okay.
constitution, they won't have any trouble getting into the European
European
army.
army. Yeah, especially with European army, because then Germany wouldn't be so dependent on America and the
Absolutely.
US.
All right, guys. Well, it is time for our nightly break. Right. So we got about 3 minutes. Guys, if you guys have enjoyed this conversation, the insights, being able to bring in people, I'd like to be able to do this more often. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. Make sure you guys let me know how you feel about this conversation. Thanks to Yogurt and Tobias for both of you guys for joining our conversation. You guys are welcome to stick around as long as you want to. We're going to take a real quick 5 minute break and come back at 8:30 Eastern. And we guys will see you then. I really need to use the restroom. I'm not gonna lie. So we will be right back.
So just for your information, I'm gonna leave for real this
Yep.
time.
Absolutely. See you later, my man. Later, Tobias.
Bye.
Later, Yogurt. Really quickly, you guys, make sure if you guys enjoyed them and appreciated their opinions and their time that they took tonight, it's very late over there. You guys, make sure you at them and let them know your appreciation in Discord. Um, absolutely. And I'm going to go use the restroom now, like I was supposed to. All right, and we are back. So big shout out to those guys. Love both y'all. We actually met playing a video game, guys. So, but they're really opinionated, and you guys can see even with two guys that are very close, and they are good friends from what I understand. I mean, they take trips together and stuff. Um, even they are, uh, they are undecided between each other about where they stand. So, there's a little bit of conflict. Tobias was really low there until the end, and I'm sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize, and I talked over him quite a few times, and I apologize to him for that. But yeah, there you go. That's two guys that are closer. I mean, 3 hours drive, and they're in a war zone, guys. But that's how small Europe is. And if we go back, and I really want to focus on this because this is really the importance of it. Um, if we look at Austria, right? Now imagine they're a 3 hour drive and Ukraine's all the way over here. The distance between these countries is like 3-4 hours. Like driving. Think about that. That's a huge distance from here. They're close to Vienna. So between here and here. So yeah. It's quite interesting. So when you think about it, that's really the size of the European continent, right? Just a few hours, and I mean, everybody here, like Poland's right next door, but the Czech Republic, few hours drive, you're in Ukraine. Germany, few hours drive, and you're in Ukraine. The Netherlands, right, which is where another individual I know is from, you know, and he drives. It's like 20 hours from like the furthest. He's up by Amsterdam. It's like literally a 19-hour drive to Ukraine. I mean, it's literally like crossing the U.S. Now, Spain to Ukraine is like a day and a half journey. Okay, you gotta sleep and shit, but still, it's a day and a half away. Like, that's driving across the U.S., guys. Like, I think that sometimes we forget how small the European continent actually is. That was more of the point. Luna was recruiting for people to come give her cookies. Yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. That was sort of the point, and we're gonna move on. Big shout out to them once again. And guys, don't be afraid to join VC chat. I'm not the most well spoken person all the time. I have really worked today to improve the quality of the stream and focus on what I'm going to talk to you about and making sure that I don't pause and say as much or other things like that. So I'm trying to, get this a little bit more well put together. But don't be afraid to join in. So let's see. It's super interesting hearing other nations' views. Americans usually have tunnel vision, including, well, it's not tunnel vision really. It's about, so Americans have what's important to us, right? And a concern of someone who's across an entire ocean, who is a part of a country who has the strongest military in the world, the concerns for us are entirely different than someone who's literally 4 hours away from it, right? Entirely different level of concerns. So, I can live on mac and cheese and bratwurst. Yo, I should have brought it up. Wiener Schnitzel. Oh man, if you've never had Wiener Schnitzel, oh god, it's so good. It's so good. And then there's why can't I think? It's basically by like beer schnitzel. Oh, it's so good too. Oh. Luna, no comment. Hey, at Jim W. What's up, Jim? Good to see you, man. You missed a hell of a episode. That's why we have rewind, though, right? So good to see you guys. Thank you guys so much for hitting that like button and making sure you're subscribed. We've gained another subscriber. Appreciate it. Appreciate 2 subscribers actually. Appreciate all of you. Yeah, German food is actually very interesting and very wonderful. It's not this sour, dull food that some people tend to make it out to be. It's actually quite intense, and I love it. I miss it. I do miss the German food sometimes, especially the beer festivals and stuff like that. So, all right. So moving on. Now you guys have like a decent understanding of how two Europeans feel. And again, because of monoculturalism, and a lot of Western European nations are very monoculturalized. Not meaning that there's only one culture they have, but it's just, 80% of the country identifies with one cultural group. Okay, it's that's not the U.S. You know, so basically, the next part was Hungary announced that through their ambassador to Ukraine, the Hungarian ambassador to Ukraine, that Hungary has never been against Ukraine's entry into NATO, and it will not be against it if Kiev decides to join the alliance. It will not vote against it, contrary to what their president said. So that is a positive. Yeah. It's easy. HU is now a country of intrigues. They dislike Ukraine, but hope to have something like the United Kingdom was in the EU. Hungary has a general plan to collect a bag of gold and plot a revenge for... I have no idea what that is. Serbia must push on with reforms to join EU, says Germany's Schultz. Yep. Serbia has a lot of things they need to fix about themselves. Let's see. Northern Lights says it's so flavorful. Yeah, and he's referencing German food. Yeah, absolutely, Northern. I agree. Oh Lord Jesus, we're not. Yeah, no, we're just gonna stop. See, this is what I talk about, where Twitter just devolves. What purpose does this serve? Like, does it forward your conversation? Does it bring people who disagree with you to your side, or does it polarize you? Is this you're literally stamping a Z on the forehead of someone because they disagree with cutting off Russian oil and gas because it would destroy their economy? Maybe by alleviating their fears, addressing their issues, and trying to find common ground so that they can feel comfortable to move to your side, because the differences aren't insurmountable here, right? Or they shouldn't be, unless it's truly, he's being an agent of Russian interest. But I don't think that serves his interest, right? So if you can address people's fear and allay the fears, allay the issues, and address the issues, I think that that's much better than this. This is what I talk about with othering people because they disagree with you or how you want things to be done. Not everybody's going to be on the same page, guys. It's cultural differences. And hopefully tonight you guys were able to see the cultural differences just in opinions, just by geographic location, right? So, yeah. There we go. We're going to get off that soapbox now. All right, so the next thing, talking about this assessment from the Director of National Intelligence, and what she said. So this is the basis for everything that I was talking about tonight. It says, we assess President Putin is preparing for prolonged conflict in Ukraine, during which he still intends to achieve goals beyond the Donbass. The U.S. intelligence community assesses we are not confident that the fight in Donbass will effectively end the war. The U.S. intelligence community believes Putin would only authorize the use of nuclear weapons if he perceived an existential threat to the Russian state. This is wordplay here, guys. So if he perceives an existential threat to the Russian state, well, to him, he's already shown an ability to overreact or overinterpret actions. So what would he consider an existential threat? I don't think is going to be the same as what other people would consider an existential threat. But moving on. With tensions this high, there is always an enhanced potential for miscalculation. And that's what I was mentioning with Poland earlier. Like, just one tiny slip could cause Article 5 to happen and cause unintended escalation. The uncertain nature of the battle, combined with the reality that Putin faces a mismatch between his ambitions and Russia's current conventional military capabilities, likely means that the next few months could be more unpredictable and potentially escalatory. Basically the same thing I've been saying. I don't think Putin's military matches what he's trying to do. And in its current state, it's not going to be able to do much besides what it's already doing except against adversaries who just don't have a standing military or are lacking military capabilities that give Russia a superior advantage in the air or on land for some reason, or at sea if it's a sea battle. But sea battles aren't, usually a thing between foreign powers who aren't super gigantic already. U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency Director Scott Barrier echoes earlier assessments China is closely watching Russia and Ukraine, thinking about future operations probably against Taiwan and how difficult that might be, plus thinking about the scrutiny that they would come under. So this is where I said, and you guys have heard me say it before, China's going to China. All right, China is very easy to know what they're going to do. Ask yourself two questions. Does it serve China's interests? How does it hurt China? Right? Those two things. Is it in their self-interest and does it harm them? And then the next question you need to ask yourself, does it harm the West? If it's yes to the first and no to the second, they're probably going to do it. If it's kind of 50-50 on the first one and no, it doesn't harm the West, they're not going to do it. Okay? China will always do what's in its best interest, and especially if it harms the U.S. Okay? And so that's basically how China works. That's how you assess. That's how you assess what China's going to do, right? And then, of course, between those two, you say, okay, now do they have the capabilities to do this thing or to do anything about this situation? And then you assess that, and then the cost, and then just go back to question A and question B. Each time you go down the tree, just go back to question A and question B in that subtree, and it will always answer. It will always answer what China's going to do, which is nice, but at the same time, it makes China very ruthless because China doesn't care what you think about them. Right? China cares about what's in China's best interest. And what's in China's best interest is not in the U.S. best interest ever. Period. They will not do something, they will harm themselves not to do something that benefits the West. Because China sees the existence of the West as counter to its existence, right? That Western culture is counter to the existence of the Communist Chinese Party. Period. Northern Light says everything is a threat to Russia. That is a threat to Russia to put Putin. Okay, so yeah, everything is a threat to Russia according to Putin and his thought process. Get it? Yep. All right, moving forward. Context: Pentagon press secretary yesterday. I would not call it a stalemate. There are literally towns and villages that are changing hands sometimes in the course of a day or so. We assess the Russians continue to make incremental progress, moving down from the north. All right. China's out there talking trash to Canada over Taiwan. So Taiwan is very simple, right? They want reunification. China sees it as necessary to fully exert their power upon the stage. As long as they have this tiny little island state that's flipping them the bird, that's from the previous regime, and it's basically the remnants of the previous regime that's now created this country that's gone so far along a path that it's separate from China culturally, and they formed their own government and everything else, and they're also the largest microprocessor manufacturer in the world. The problem China is going to have is that no one else in the rest of the world benefits from China possessing Taiwan. Okay? It hurts them significantly and it cripples their ability to create any form of tech. And so China finds itself in a significant corner where Taiwan being taken by China would even churn Russia against it, right? Russia, even though it's embargoed, it still doesn't want to see Taiwan in Chinese hands. It wants it to be independent in case it and China get in a squabble, which is entirely possible. And the rest of the world doesn't want to see that, except for the puppet governments that have basically been economically enslaved by the Belt and Road Initiative, right? China's been really smart. It saw resources it wanted that it didn't have or it couldn't capably produce on its own territories, and basically went in and gave countries loans and things that they couldn't afford. And when they couldn't afford the payments, they basically nationalized it, but nationalized it to China and took it away from that nation. I don't know if Canada step up for Taiwan and that pissed China off at them. So anyone who refuses to say that Taiwan belongs to China pisses is off China, right? Anyone who addresses and accepts that Taiwan has created basically its own sovereign, independent nation state pisses off China. You know, you have multinational corporations based in the U.S. corporations that bend the knee to China. And I think we need to do some things about that. But that's, again, a subject for another time. You know, we have to keep things brief. They've wanted Taiwan since the Chiang Kai-shek set up a government. Yeah, they have. I mean, it's the remnants. It's the last remnants of. They see it as basically a separatist, old government that created a separatist territory, right? That's how they see it. But the Taiwan has transformed so far from those original roots that it's not even representative of that anymore, and I don't think they can let go of that. An independent non-government communist government, says I love Tarkin. Agreed, but again, I don't think they'll make that move. It will harm them. They will see incredible military response from every nation in the world that has any disagreements with China. They would be facing down Italy, France, Spain, the UK, right? Japan, Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, right? Italy, France, Germany. Like, name every possible military that has a capable military, and all of those countries are coming for your neck. And they only have like 350 nukes. Like, they can't do it. Russia has enough nukes to saturate air defense systems. Okay? China does not have enough nukes to saturate air defense systems. And their hypersonics just require wind buffeting to knock them off course. And the moment that a hypersonic starts wobbling, it destroys itself because it's moving so fast in the heat around it. So, yeah, absolutely we support Taiwan. Why wouldn't we? And why wouldn't Canada support Taiwan? They benefit from not having it in the hands of the Chinese. Giving the Chinese basically full control of the microprocessor market across the world, it doesn't help anyone. And what's going on, Dr. Hex? Welcome. So yeah, but it literally doesn't help anybody. China. So I love Tarkin. China doesn't want Western countries to relocate their business to another country. I don't know how that really applies. I mean, you either partake in the Chinese economy or you don't. The thing is that, so for example, all right, so let's quick example. Microsoft wanted to bring the Azure system, the Azure cloud, to China. And China does not allow tech companies to run their own companies inside of China. You basically license the tech to a management company that then sends you revenues, right? And you have to let a Chinese company manage it. And it can have your name and everything, but it's not going to be ran by you, technically. And so Microsoft was smart. They did two things. So they knew that if they handed over the Azure cloud as it exists right now. I don't think he means to do that. So I'm gonna server mute him for a moment. So basically, Azure requires you to basically China requires Azure to basically hand over all of their proprietary technology. And in doing so, Microsoft said no. So what they did is they knew that basically if they did this, China was going to take their proprietary technology, clone it, and then create their own derivative. Microsoft took and removed key parts of the Azure cloud system that were highly proprietary, that made it highly performant versus other clouds, while still allowing their technical products to work, just not nearly as well, but they still achieve their purposes, right? Just less scalability. And with that, they also created what's known as private cloud, Azure, which large corporations can implement, and Wells Fargo specifically wanted. Okay, I was there kind of at the beginning of its implementation. So, you're good, Fifth. I just didn't want you talking about your credit card on stream. Yeah, Fifth Ace just said sorry about that. Thought I was on mute. I was quite ready to say anything yet. No, the biggest thing is so when they did that, they were able to create a new product that they could sell in the U.S. because there's this thing called hybrid cloud. So you have public cloud, private cloud. Private cloud is basic. Guys, the cloud is nothing but mainframe 2.0, okay? Mainframes, you had a gigantic computer you put into smaller slices, right? The cloud is nothing but you have smaller slices that you just aggregate into a larger computer, right? Hopefully our chip, but the thing is that Microsoft was really smart. Every company basically has to hand over their IP and tech to go play in the Chinese market. And they're willing to do this, and it's such a detrimental decision, but they don't give a damn because they've become, instead of being capitalistic, they become hyper capitalistic. They care about the next quarterly report, the next stock report. Not they're looking at the next quarter, the next 2 quarters, not the next 5 to 10 years. And that's where the Chinese are consistently beating us, because they can focus on the long term. They don't have huge changes in leadership. They don't care what you want to do. It's their way or the highway, and you can choose to play. And if you capitalize 10% of their market, it's more than you'll probably ever get in the US, right? Even 1% of their market is more than the cap you'll get in the US. All right? 1% of the Chinese market is more than the highest cap you will most likely reach in the US. And it's hard to say no to that when you're driven off of ultra-capitalistic ideals instead of capitalistic ideals, where people still mattered and the social impact of what you did still mattered, right? And so, yes, we should have never allowed Taiwan to be the microprocessor hub and chip stronghold of the world. But we did. And now we're correcting that. But we're still 3 to 5 years out from having a fully functional 6 to 5 nanometer chip fab here in the US. And until that happens, we have to make sure that Taiwan doesn't get fucked with, right? And so does the rest of the world, because it benefits no one. Because the moment you piss off the Chinese government, they just cut off your access to microprocessors or triple your cost. And what can you do? What can you do? Zach6 says they do that to everyone, so they become a hub of other intellectual property for way cheaper. Yeah, they don't have to invest in the R&D. They have no R&D costs. Oh, I heard. So Miss Fifth Ace was apologizing for Fifth Ace not knowing his mic was on. His mic is reinstated. I already addressed that, I think. Miss Fifth. Appreciate it. So, yeah, guys, I mean, China's going to China. Just remember that. They're going to do what's in their best interest. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about their own people a lot of times. China is going to do what's in the best of the collective China. And for them, the collective is the higher ups of the Communist Party. If you're just regular Joe Schmo out working a farm, they don't give a shit about you either. No, you're good. Hold on. I need to turn on the. Oh, 1 second. So go ahead, say that again, because it was desktop audio was muted. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I said I don't think people understand and truly realize and get a grasp on just what China does to their own people, just how truly bad it is to live in China.
Mm-hmm.
People know that it's a communist country, and people understand that but they see China, they see people traveling to China, they see people going over there to for vacations and to visit, coming in and out of there, uh, and so it gives people the false idea of that China's open more than what it really is. People need to get a grip and a grasp of it. The government has. You cannot make a move in China without being watched,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not by cameras, and it's not by it's by other people.
Literally by the people beside you there.
It's
Yeah.
right. Your best friend beside you is reporting to somebody higher up in China, telling them what you're doing.
Because if not, they'll impact your social credit score, and dude, you can literally be banned from using you can be poor as hell, right, and have contributed to the system your entire life, and they can literally ban you from using public transport because you got reported for something.
Yeah, it's they don't have the. I mean, we're talking people. People get a grip. They live off of $2 and $3 a month income over there, and that is no joke.
But they have food subsidies and stuff, so
Right,
we
they
have
have
to be
food subsidies,
careful. It's not like they're buying their food. That's not the same. They have books and stuff. It's a
Yes,
little
yes,
different.
exactly. But still, $2 to $3 a month. You don't have the There are don't get me wrong. They're not all living in grass shacks and mud floor huts, and
No,
I
if
don't
you
mean
live
it
in one
like
of the
that.
major cities, or you're well connected to the Chinese Communist Party, you're
You're doing
pretty
good.
well off. You're middle class or higher. Period.
That's
Guaranteed.
right. That doesn't mean,
Yeah.
but even the ones that are doing that don't have freedoms like what you think they have. They're being watched just as well. I mean, the watchers have watchers.
Mm-hmm.
You just because you're one of the watchers doesn't mean that you're free to do whatever you want. There's somebody watching you, making sure you're not doing something either.
Yeah.
You know,
So there's Shaodonghua, right, which is basically um shadow your brother, right? So even if you're in the highest echelons, the people next to you are just as powerful as you, but they're reporting on you, right? And the chairman of the party is the only person who's kind of above most of it. But even him, the people directly below the chairman are watching the chairman. And if the chairman starts to do something that's counter to the party, he can be replaced. Right? Now, that's not quite often because the chairman has no reason to go against the party or not do anything that's in the party's interest, unless he just gets idealistic. But by that time, if you rise to be the chairman of the Communist Chinese Party, you're so far gone that you're not going to be idealistic in that way usually. I don't think one of them has existed yet. I mean, Mao was willing to sacrifice 3 million of his own people through starvation, so
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, and this whole equality in the collective doesn't exist either. When you get to like Western China and the farmlands and the rice paddies, they do not live equivalently to the people in the cities. And the people who are doing the low-level jobs in the cities do not live equivalently to the people who have full educations. And whether you go to college or not is up to how good of a communist you've been. So it's not about merit, right? I believe in meritocracy. I believe I don't care about any of your other characteristics. If you are better, if you work harder, right, then you deserve what you earn. And everybody should have the same opportunity, right? Not the same outcome. As long as you have access, and you should be rated on your, like if you come from a D system, right? We can normalize for that. But I would be wrong if you come from a system where the level of education is not the same as someone who's coming from a higher level education system. Let's say you're from Detroit versus you're in Dilworth in Charlotte, right? Dilworth is like one of the top school systems in America, all right? Versus Detroit absolutely abysmal, right? I would be setting you up for failure sending you to MIT. So go to Brown, go to Stanford, right? But to say you have the ability to get a higher education, but if I send you to MIT versus that guy from Delaware, you didn't have the same educational opportunities, and we can work on rectifying that. But to say that you you should take someone's place, no, I believe in meritocracy, and it sucks. So, yeah. Now, I do believe that there are things we need to do to address those issues, and there are ways we can address them. And I don't think that either party has done a really good job of doing it, because I think there's a balance there, and we can get into that sometime. That's a whole nother thing. But in China, you don't have any of that, right? You don't get there based on your merits, and you don't get there based on social justice or EO quotas or any of the stuff that we argue about. It's literally, were you a good communist? And then your grades come after all of that. Like, everything else is secondary to that, right? Did you serve the party, and how well is your family connected to the party? And then everything else comes in. If you're well connected to the party, you can fuck off all day and get passed through, as long as you don't mess up your social credit score. It's crazy. China is a crazy place, guys. You guys should look into it. And I'm not anti-Chinese at all. I'm saying that I'm against the Chinese Communist Party. I like Chinese people. They're hardworking. They're intuitive. Okay, they get shit done. Don't get me wrong. I like Chinese people. The Communist Party is fucking evil. So, yeah, I want to make sure, just like we were clear earlier, we were in no way saying, like, it's okay what happened in Germany. It's just a historical fact, right? I love time. They should. So hold on, let me read this. Something happened over here. Zach 6, they Luna Girl, they report family members. Yeah, your own family member will report you over there. That falls under save your own ass. So they're more loyal to the government than their own people who. So Luna Girl, who brought them to the world. Yes, they are, Luna. There are stories of people ratting out sons ratting out their whole family because they said something against the chairman. For the record, I'm very familiar with how things are done. It's just way different than how it's just way different. Yeah, I mean, it's culturally different, but evil is evil no matter how you look at it. And I think that the CCP is evil in its nature. It dehumanizes it dehumanizes individuals for the purpose of the collective. And again, I know this goes to, we were having this conversation when we had the two other guys in here. Self-determination is a huge core principle of Americanism, right? The ability to choose your own direction, and the idea of your personal rights being overwhelmed by the collective is the exact reason why most people who are in the center and center right and are moving towards the right, because being told that you must do this, we don't care what you think, goes against a very core concept of Americanism. Right. So
when you have to get a permit in order to have dinner with two of your neighbors, and you think I'm joking, and I'm not.
I know.
If you want to have a dinner party at your house, you have to go to the government to get a permit in order to have that dinner party.
Yeah.
And we're just talking with two of your neighbors. Nobody important, nobody nothing, not even nothing special. You have to have a permit to do almost anything there. And that is that goes against all rights as being just a person, being a human. They tell you who your friends are. They tell you who you can. I mean, it's.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And they tell you
that's just culture. That's not culture. That is dehumanizing.
Yeah. To open a business or have any forward mobility, you have to get the approval of the government. And they can just tell you, no, you need to work the job we gave you because we don't have anybody else to do it. Right.
That's right.
And so Zach 6 says, at the Cardboard Castle, I get it. Just wanted to clarify my personal stance. The CCP runs the place like the Russian Federation does. The people that live there don't have much of a choice. I think you're correct that the Chinese people don't have much of a choice, and they're squelched, and they know they're worse than Russia when it comes to disappearing people, right? But the problem is I don't like the comparison to the Russian Federation, because it seems that a large majority of the Russian people are complicit in their government's action. And I talked about this last night, that it's a cultural difference, right? That they see this masculinity, this they see Putin's actions as masculine, and they have really a 1950s 1960s look at masculinity and war and violence, and that violence is masculine, right? And so it's not comparative totally. I think it's sort of apple to oranges, but you're right. The governments are kind of the same in that if you disagree with them, they'll disappear you. It's just Russia's less likely to do it unless you're super vocal. They just don't allow you to get any traction. The CCP doesn't allow you to get any traction, and they'll still disappear you. You speak against the chairman, you speak against the Communist Party, their asses will disappear you. And I have a group of friends of mine that are Chinese immigrants, and a friend of mine who is married to a Chinese woman, and her family's back in China. And I'm like, the ideas of like the news they get and what they get told is entirely different than what we see here. It's crazy. I love to Osman. Many folks keep a holy book in their luggage. It's to keep from traveling without one, so they can continue to do religious studies while traveling. Some don't think about taking it out. Oh, I think we're talking about like people who get caught with Bibles not paying attention, and they go to China and they end up getting arrested for having illegal doctrine. Yeah, that shit's crazy too. Or like here's another thing, like, so being as someone who has been on the what quote unquote left my entire life, right? And I'm sorry, I'm gonna take off my hat, guys. I apologize. And of course it gets caught on my headset. Someone who's been on the left my entire life, considered a registered Democrat. I voted for Obama. You have your opinions. We're not gonna talk about it right now.
Cardboard, I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good, man. No, thanks for joining.
I wish I had more time with you, but I've got to run somewhere. But yeah, thank you very much. I'll join you tomorrow, I promise.
Absolutely. Feel free. See you later, Hex.
Okay, we'll see you later, man.
All right. So it's crazy. That it's just crazy that people see the Uyghur Muslims. That is a concentration camp. That's not a re-education camp. I don't care. But we're not talking about it. We want equality for people. We're supposed to be against people being taken advantage of, all this stuff. And yet we're over here fighting for mandates and big pharma and everything else. But and we forgot against the First Amendment, and yet we support, there seems to be support amongst the far left for the Communist Chinese Party and sort of the social credit system and stuff like that. But we ignore modern slavery against a religious minority. Like, my mind is just blown, man, on that one. That's another topic for another time. But moving back, I just think that China's going to do what's in their best interest. China, and when I say China, I don't mean the Chinese people. I mean the CCP government. And it's just crazy, dude. It is craziness. All right. I don't think we have time to address the Tim Scott shuts down Biden official. Okay, so this real quick, guys. Remember that when you're framing things, it's very important that when you're quote unquote fighting racism, you don't become racist yourself. All right? So Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, suggested Tuesday to a black senator raised by a single black mother that black women need abortions in order to succeed. That's really what it comes down to. And if you don't see how that statement is racist in and of itself, you might want to go get your brain checked, guys. The idea that somehow black people don't know how to use the DMV website or use the internet to get to the DMV website to get free ID, right? Kind of racist. The idea that black people can't speak for themselves and need a white person to do it, kind of racist, okay? You can say silence is violence is all you want, but I promise you, if a black person has a problem with something that's going on, they're probably going to speak up about it, all right? They can speak for themselves. The idea that, all black people must be monolithic and have the same opinions, and every last one of them grew up in the hood, like, that's fucking racist. Like, I hate to say this, I hate this fucking saying, but check your fucking privilege. Oh, man. All right. So the Biden official said that one aspect of a satisfying life is to feel that you have the financial resources to raise a child, that the child you bring into the world are wanted, and that you have the ability to take care of them. In many cases, abortions are teenage women, particularly low income and often black. So basically attributing most black women, they want abortions because they're poor and can't afford to have a satisfying life and take care of a kid because they're just, black. Do you not hear yourself? Like how? I don't know. Whatever. We're just gonna leave it as it is. So guys, make sure when you're talking, think about is how I'm saying. Is what I'm saying in some way actually trying to stick up for somebody, making assumptions based on the idea that some race has intrinsic qualities that are lesser, that make them in need of, like, think about what you're saying, okay? Because you can quickly go from, oh, I'm trying to fight racism, to you're fucking racist as shit real quick. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. It has been a great conversation and a great episode. We are going to wrap this up. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you haven't already. To all you lurkers out there, we appreciate you. Guys, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section if you like this and what you liked about this episode, so we can continue to do it in the future. I appreciate all of you. And as we always go out, I just want to let every last one of you know that you all have intrinsic value just by being human and being alive. It doesn't matter your race, color, creed, gender, any of those things. Just by being human, you have value. I love every last one of you guys. Have a great night. I appreciate you. Peace.